So I visited Vietnam on several occasions for the past 50 years, and the transition is tremendous. One of the things that I see is how much less of bureaucracy that you meet and how much more accessible information is today than it used to be. So the country has already, I think, digitalized to a great degree. And as I've understood, will further develop now the ambitions of digital transformation. It's very interesting. I'm here to offer some experiences and insights after having been in a digital transformation phase for a very long time in Sweden. There are some very clear benefits that we have enjoyed with the technical development over the years. So I will speak on that in terms of efficiency, in terms of transparency, also the importance of accountability in public work, to build a society based on trust and free from corruption. So I think the transparency issue and the possibilities that digitalized public administration offers in terms of reviewing performance, for example, is immensely important for building a society based on trust, and not least trust between the private sector and the public sector, which is of course important for the further development of business. So that's been very, very important in my country. Well, I think education is key. It's enormously important that you continue investing in the new generations, of course. And that I think Vietnam has done for a long time. That is also our experience, that is the basis. And through a good educational basis and a widespread use of digital technology comes innovation. And we've experienced this over the last, I would say, 25 years, where the nation has been computerized. We have had the largest level of broadband penetration in Europe. And from that has also come some worldwide successful companies like Skype, for example, or Spotify. So Sweden was very early in allowing, in educating and encouraging people to use digital techniques. And from that comes innovation and growth. One of the foundations, I think, in all the Nordic countries, the absence of widespread corruption, the trust from the private sector that the state and the public sector is fair, and is also given priority to the interests of business. Much of the success of my country has been a partnership between the public sector and the private sector. So many of the big Swedish companies that you know and that are known worldwide could not have existed if they were not actively supported by the public sector and the state. So it's very much been a partnership on the labor market, but also in terms of investments and technical advancement. So that is, I think, the trust issue is very, very important, because that also fosters trust between people in society, which then creates an environment where people are ready to take risks. If they know that there's a security system that will provide for them if they don't succeed, that also encourages people to take risks. And that also creates innovation and development and growth, I think. Yes, I think that we may have some experiences in my country that we are glad to offer to Vietnam in achieving the very ambitious goals that you have set for yourselves in the next 10 to 15 years. But we also are faced with some very big challenges now that we have come to the point where we are today, where I think the experience that you will have is going to be very important to bring back home in the reforms that we need to get started in my country. So I think it's very much a two-way traffic. You may have some things that will inspire you from our history, but we certainly will have some things to take back home from the phase of development that you're in right now. You're doing some very interesting things. It depends a little bit about what kinds of insurance you're talking about. Insurance is very important. It is also the basis of being able to foster a society where people are willing to take risks. The Swedish social security system, which is the public part of the insurance system, is very big. So the state has taken, a big portion of the insurance market in terms of pensions, in terms of also sickness and parental issues. From an individual point of view, that's been very important in freeing, the innovative and entrepreneurship of individuals. But it also has another important aspect, which is that it frees capital. If the state takes responsibility for a certain number of fundamental security issues for people, they will not over-insure themselves on the market, which frees capital for consumption purposes. So that's been also, I think, in my country, a very important recipe for growth and development. So you have the private insurance market, which is very, very important, but it's also important to have a public one, because it strikes a balance in people's lives, which allows them also to take own initiatives in order to further their own interests and also pursue the ideas that they believe in and try to find a place on the market for them. The insurance logic is also a logic of calculating risks. And here, the whole digital transformation or digitalization of the insurance market had also allowed actors on the insurance market to think differently. I mean, in the old days, every insurance case was investigated and tried in order to determine whether the terms of the insurance were met and a payment would be made. Now the whole insurance market on the private side has changed logic and is basing its decisions much more on the history of the individual. So, for example, if I have an insurance issue and I call my insurance company for a damage on my car or on my house, or I've lost something, and I contact my insurance company perhaps once every 10 years. They don't investigate, they just pay. So it's much more efficient. They make a risk calculation on the basis of how people behave, which is much more easily done if you have data and you can digitalize the information. Then you can make a correct assessment on whether you need to go into a further investigation of whether the insurance terms are met or not. You can calculate risks and base your decision on that, which is much more efficient and beneficial for everybody, including those who have insurances. Well, I manage about 50 different insurances and benefits. And then we have a separate authority that manages the pension system. So those are the two largest administrative bodies that are responsible for the social insurance system. Each insurance has its own logic and is managed and handled differently. We are now in the process of digital transformation, which means that we are thinking more and more like the private sector insurance company. So we want to base our management and case handling much more on risk assessment for a number of reasons. It's more efficient, it's more accurate, it allows a much higher degree of service to the population. They will have their cases handled much quicker when they have a claim of an insurance of some sort. Well, I think there are many areas where we can learn from each other. Vietnam is a much bigger country with 10 times the population of Sweden. You have a different demographic profile than we do. So there are many differences, which is a good thing, I think, when it comes to learning. So I think there's great potential of perhaps also not making some of the mistakes that we have made over the years. Now that you are building up a much more modern system in your country. So please don't make the same mistakes that we did.